We want to be the protection destination where people come to us to seek protection.
Marketing team needs to learn a little bit more tech, a little bit more product, a little bit more data. Product teams need to be a bit more open towards understanding marketing requirements.
Absolutely. A mix of marketing philosophy with a technology stack and what you do as a strategy and implement it. That is what is growth.
Welcome to one more episode of the State of Retention Marketing Conversation. Today, I have an interesting guest. He spent a lot of time in product hats across various parts of the industry. Now he leads the entire product operation for Acko. Acko is a digital-first insurance company which has had a fairly interesting journey, now called a unicorn by the standards of the world. So thank you so much for doing this, Vadiraj. Welcome on board.
Hi, Ankur.
So maybe I'll just start with a little bit of introduction about yourself, Vadiraj. You've had a fairly interesting journey. Maybe you could just run us through a little bit of that.
I've seen the startup ecosystem in India grow. From very nascent days. I've seen a lot of evolutions that have happened. I think evolutions of fintech, e-commerce. I think now, interestingly, fortunate enough, serendipitous enough to be in the Insurtech disruption that's happening. So I've seen India evolve from its early days, and quite happy to be seeing those shape up well for India.
Sure. So the product hat has been a somewhat consistent theme, and that's kind of where you've thrived.
Yes, I think, last 10, 15 years, it's been product. I think technology-led, product-led disruptions, in different domains. I think, where either something been inefficiently done, and I think, if a product and a technology can make it efficient, I think, I've been in those kind of journeys in fintech, e-commerce, retail, mobility, shared mobility, and now insurance. I think, and again, in all of the themes, the connecting thread has been technology. I think either technology disruptions or some way how technology can make the existing processes work better, and that can create value for the organizations as well as better customer experience for the end customers.
So I'm going to pick up two pieces from what you said: the whole improvement in customer experience and the disruption that Insurtech is bringing in. If you could help us understand the larger insurance landscape in India a little better, and how the disruption is shaping, and what are the key things that are changing really in that sense.
So insurance is a very interesting space, right? It's some way a non-sexy space, to call that, because I think, it is not, you don't buy it for gratification. I think you might buy something like, you might buy a, jeans or a cloth or a toy for your kids or food. That may be for some gratification that you do. Insurance, interestingly, is not for that. I think you do it to cover your risk. And so Abhi in India's mindset, I think, is, do we really require insurance?
Sure.
And to a great degree, in the world that is evolved, I think earlier we only used to know about motor insurance or maybe life insurance, LIC as that's what I have, we would have grown seeing only LIC as a thing, what we would have evolved. But I think, from an awareness standpoint of how many categories are there in insurance, I think there are a whole lot of categories. One by one, I think they're coming into play. Of course, there have been public sector companies who have been in this space a lot more since, early times in India. But as we are now, or maybe a decade back, I think there are more categories getting insured. That is from a domain standpoint, in terms of insurance and some of the things which are mandatory insurance that one ought to have.
Sure.
The awareness about that in Indians is still not there. Like, for example, you need to have a third-party insurance when you drive a vehicle. While folks here sitting in Bangalore, we may have a better awareness, but I think, if you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, I think, I'm not sure the awareness would be at the same levels. So this whole landscape, actually, interestingly, like fintech, how it is governed by RBI. Similarly, this is governed by IRDAI, and I think, they have been doing a great job as a governance platform, guidance platform for this space. And over the last few years, I think there's a lot more interesting things happening there to kind of bring awareness, bring the guidelines, to bring more people into this spectrum, which is something which ought to be there. I mean, I think people need to have insurance, and people need to be aware of what all insurances they can have or they need to have, and what is the best way to have that. And last statement of what is the best way to have it is what I think, what we are trying to do in my current organization at Acko, where we are a D2C player. I mean, I think we are taking a different look at it. I mean, I think the founders of the company had a different view. They had a great view of the landscape, and I think that they took a view of saying that, we don't want to sell with feet on the ground, but I think, how technology can, how can we use technology to make it a D2C company? I think, and that's where we take pride in saying, how we can acquire customers, how we can fulfill their needs, as well as, in terms of keep the trust.
Sure.
I think that's where we there at this these times as a company, as well as where the landscape overall as an insurance where it is.
But digital is still overall a small part of the industry. In your case, it's 100%, and you've done pretty well in terms of the scale. But digital as a share of overall business for different insurance companies is probably 0 or single-digit small percentage, right? So that's where, when we talk about disruption, would you imagine that the entire Gen Z that's now probably going to buy their insurance for the first time will end up doing it digitally? And that's where people like Acko will have a natural advantage, because you think like a digital native.
Absolutely, you're right. And that's what we hope to do, because I think, as you rightly said, I think the awareness is not there, and the Gen Z, the awareness of technology and the use of technology is much more easier for them. So if we are able to kind of get the right awareness, get the right tools, get ourselves in front of them, to make them aware and make it easy to kind of understand this space, and then actually become a customer for us. I think, that's where we thrive on. And the other point that you connected was lot of the major share of the industry is like, they're not there. Because they have been traditionally, it is a normal rules of the land, right? In the sense, somebody who has been there, I think they have a way of doing. I think they have agents, distributors, and the way it works. And it is far more easier, slightly, if somebody takes a very different cut at it and start new. I think that's a more efficient way of doing it.
Yeah, well, you've not had to deal with the legacy baggage that might have come along with a larger company tend to go D2C. But, you're a product guy, so I would love to look at it from a product lens. When somebody interfaces with a brand in the digital first insurance space for the first time, and he has a certain journey of education, convincing, conversion to a point where he buys maybe his first insurance product. Would you be able to break this journey down for us in terms of what would it look like in the digital first world?
I think, the first is, any company wanting to get in, or like, who is there but trying to get, I think there are a lot of things has to be making awareness of the company as well as awareness of its products, but before that, awareness of the industry.
That's what it's a large problem, right?
Exactly, right? So how we all, I think, it's a not just as a organization or a product leader, but I think, how as a country, I would say, I think it's an onus, and maybe somewhere it may be in KRA of IRDA as well, to say that, how we get the awareness in front of the customers. And as a digital company, I think we are slightly better equipped to say that, how we can make them aware. And I think, if you see, there is a lot of earlier, I think awareness is all about word of mouth. People having, hey, did you buy insurance? Or rather, I would say, going back our own, if I have to rewind back our own experiences by, a decade or so, you would have heard about it because tax season, I think, buy insurance policy or whatever it is. So I think, so we have to come out of that thing to say that, hey, this is mandatory. It's good for yourself and your family. And third is, it's not something that you have to be fearful about. I think, it's a cool thing.
Sure. So if you look at somebody who's landed on, an insurance page, now he's gotten a certain amount of homework done. He's gotten a certain amount of convincing / cajoling / threatening done that you need to buy insurance because things have happened in people's lives. COVID has been around, and there has been increased awareness on the fact that people might die sooner than they plan to in a lot of situations. So as a general category, awareness and need, I would imagine there's a degree of acceleration that has happened. But now when somebody is on a certain interface, and there are various brands and various companies and various offerings now, From within that journey, the whole aspect of building confidence with one brand or one company as the right partner to do this with is where the interface with the brand or the company or the product starts, right? So I would love to just double click on how you think of a perfect product experience from an insurance buyer standpoint once he's on the platform.
Sure. There are two things. I will actually stretch your question, slightly extend it even before coming to the platform,
Sure.
and then I will connect it back to coming on the platform, right? So if you look back overall as a steady, I think I would say a lot of customers who already have insurances. I think a lot of customers every time the renewal comes, they switch.
Sure.
There's a high chance that there is a switch that happens from one policy to other that is there. I think so that's a very important thing, and I'll tell you why when I connect to the next point. Second thing is the so what happens is, I think one is you're looking from an acquisition standpoint from potential customers who are ready to switch. They are your acquisition part of it. Second is your retention part of it is you have your customers. I think you are engaging with them, but the statistics that there's a possibility to switch.
Sure.
So how do we retain them?
Yeah.
So these two are the aspects that one needs to be aware of when we design anything. I think any of product marketing led, co-led strategies. I think these are the two important themes. Now coming back to and there is another theme of how I think there's nobody who is there. I think who is first time into the insurance. I think you are trying to buy a newer category. I think then you apply a lens of a slightly different lens. I think the messaging that you do, that you do is different. So now I'll come back to the second part of your question. Once you're on the platform, and I'm generalizing it as a digital platform, not just what we may be doing, but I think any player in the digital platform, I think in this industry, trust is a very important lever. Anybody wanting to buy, I think what they do, if you look back at and study their behavior, it is you do some research about their concerns are more on insurance I'm buying, but I'm buying it for a risk.
Sure.
And at the point of risk, how true is the company? How trustable is the company? I think the trust is a very important factor when a decision is taken. So for any company, I think how you can re-emphasize that trust marker. I think the trust as a theme in the minds of the customers is a very important thing. So the aspects of comes into how effective you are in terms of that messaging, in terms of claim. I think how good are your ratios. Each companies will have different claim ratios in different categories. How you kind of emphasize on that, how you kind of play that, and get them to trust you. I think as a brand, as a company, and as a thing that hey, we are there when you are required.
Sure.
And I think and as a digital company, I think you can powerfully do it more because you are not dependent on other feet on the street or any other other agents being there. I think we can, any digital company can have that control with themselves. In terms of you slightly more about that cohort, you slightly know more about the potential customer.
So I'm just going to try and zoom into the whole user journey. Really, that okay, when somebody is looking to buy insurance, if he's motor insurance as a product, a typical entry point might either be on the dealer interface and whatever, but we'll zoom into the direct to consumer side of situation. So I either have a car or I'm buying a new car. I need to add insurance to it. So I'm here to now buy insurance. I would have compared multiple possible providers. I've heard a few things about one particular brand, and now I've landed on their page. I like what I see in terms of the confidence building measures, and now I need to go step further in the whole journey. And as a product guy, you always have funnels, right? Somebody will land here, a percentage will drop off, and then they'll go to the next stage, then will drop off and next stage, and so on and so forth. So from a product experience standpoint, there are nuances that might be interesting to observe. That at this page, it's all going to be about trust. Maybe in your
trust and even trust and information and easy availability and access of information about about the product itself. Because there are even at the court. I think since you talked about motor itself. There will be so many things where a normal customer who has not got into the nitty-gritties will not be aware. I think very insurance specific keywords, disclaimers. what works,
The fine print.
Yeah, so the fine prints of that, and so how you can distill it, and that again comes back to the trust. I mean, I think
Sure.
how easily you are distilling that fine print and saying, hey, don't get bothered by all the terms and conditions which are there with but I mean, I think here, I mean, it's a very simple thing. I think you go there and we are there to help you. So in that journey, I mean, once he has made it, either in any of the funnels, right? I mean, it can be motor, it can be health, or in other companies, it can be different categories what they offer in. It's an ability to kind of distill that and make them aware. I mean, not from an awareness of a domain standpoint, but awareness of the product itself.
Sure.
That you have 3-4 different choices. Then you actually kind of, once they are there, I think, then you give the right pricing that is available based on his particular choices. And then it's all about, I mean, I think then the technology takes in terms of how you can provide a great checkout and payment experience, right? I think, yeah, so I think that's how I would say. I mean, make them aware, come, you then activate them, nudge them, then make them aware what all the plans are there, and before you give a quote, I think, we need to also get information about the person, right? I mean, I think, and we have, and at least with ourselves, I think we make it very easy that, you don't have to have a lot of information with you. I think, very minimal information that can be there, you can punch in and we get the quote ready for him, and where he can further take a quick call to actually just go and pay. Some customers, I mean, I think, as you said, they may drop off, it's also a decision where it is not like a it's not like a breakfast, right? I mean, that you are having and you are getting your sandwich and you have to do it now. I think, it's, people start researching for their insurance maybe 30 days, 15 days, and that whole philosophy, I mean, I think the insurance companies definitely know that better. I mean, in terms of how that whole mindset of the customers operates. I mean, and how you can kind of start nudging them, I mean, I think, to actually buy.
So, we were trying to understand this whole space around funnels, that, okay, somebody who's landed needs to build confidence with the brand, that, okay, these are the guys who are trustable when it comes to claim settlement. They are transparent with respect to how they present information. They're not really hiding things behind fine print. Those are the trust building elements that you might have at a certain stage. Now, somebody has requested a quotation, and people might either ask for a phone number at this point, or people might just provide a quotation without asking for a phone number. And there are different approaches, right? And as a consumer who's experienced multiple brands, multiple journeys, I tend to be intrigued about the science behind what is the right approach of doing this. In your impression, have you understood this to be that, okay, if I do it this way or this way, there's a better answer to the outcome?
Yeah, sure. So I think, as you rightly said, I think, the what we can describe it as a part of the product funnel, right? I mean, in terms of how we break down, somebody has come in, I think, then you need to convert, and there's not drop-offs happening at each place. I mean, how you kind of look at those drop-off, how you analyze them, and how you kind of at that point of intervene. So phone number is, of course, a great lever, because you can engage with them. I mean, of course, how you engage with them can happen different ways, and again, different companies can do it differently. I mean, at Acko, we will be doing it slightly differently in terms of because in this space, I think, you need to be, because it's such a, I mean, there may be at a point where the customer may not be aware and he needs help. And what we typically call he needs assistance, digital assistance to about the policy itself, about the terms and conditions, what may be right and for him or for his family. So availability of the phone number, as you rightly said, is a great lever. And how we do it in terms of, if there is one flow which is there, I mean, I think they come to the court, they spend some time, and after that, I think, they go and pay, and I mean, I think get the policy. Of course, right now in the last few months, I mean, I think they need to do a KYC as well, which is a guideline, which is a mandated guideline. But that's the straight through flow. Apart from that, I think a lot of guys, I think, they will take a quote, then they will kind of, drop off. So at that point of time, having a phone number, I think, we use the phone number to kind of provide assistance. And that assistance, there is again a way how you can provide assistance is we do both calling. Calling can be a great lever to engage with the customers, and of course the whole messaging channel. I mean, I think you will have all the digital messaging channels, email, SMS, and now I think WhatsApp. So it's an interplay of both. I mean, voice, which is calling as well as messaging. Essentially, it can be any channel, but I think how you do it very efficiently and in a manner what is required for the customer based on what understanding what we have so far. So I think that's the art of how you kind of use that information that is available to kind of carve out and nudge it.
Fair. So this would, head us into the realm of marketing in some sense, because
absolutely.
a lot of this has to be orchestrated from a marketing lens as well. And you did mention about the whole growth play being the interplay between product and marketing. I would love to describe that a little bit in terms of how this interplay should be ideally set up.
So this whole growth stack or growth structure itself is a slightly, I would say, it has come out in the newer world. I think earlier it used to be a slightly more, and especially to do with the D2C, B2C kind of domains, because there is a lot more that can be done using philosophies of marketing, but using technology, right?
Absolutely.
I think, and that's what is the lever, I would say, for growth. Anything that uses a mix of marketing philosophy with a technology stack and what you do as a strategy and implement it, that is what is growth. I would say growth per se. And in some ways, again, different companies will do it differently. But in my own sense, I think of what I've seen, what works, I think it should be a very collaborated play between a product and technology teams to use marketing lens for everything, right? I think and again, I go back again, right from awareness building to acquisition to activation to conversions. And each of these have an angle of growth element to it, either for acquisition or for renewals in our case, or retention in your world overall. Superset retention is a superset. So I would say that in my own lens, I think it's a collaborated strategy that you work with the marketing teams and say that, hey, our product funnels are this. These are the availabilities. From a stack standpoint, what is available now. And you've actually work with the marketing team's objectives of what they want to do as well. I think either it could be from a top. I think it could be brand marketing to bring awareness. Secondly, it could be performance marketing. It could be pure from an acquisition standpoint. From a pure play organic growth, I think there are technology interventions and all that. So in my own experience, I think the best of the success comes from how you work together as a team. I think loosely I would say a growth pod, if I have to call it. That is a way where you work together to make that happen. Alone in its silos, in my own sense, I think if you're not collaborating, I think it will be a very heavy technology view or a heavy marketing view. And I have seen in the past where I think either one can actually lead to slightly inefficient outcomes. So that's what I would say. I think what has worked even for us. I think we do work with very good cadence with the marketing teams. Understand their annual roadmaps, goals, what they want to do. In terms of all the funnels, right from acquisition to conversions and targeting, or in terms of the whole segmentation and all that.
Sure. So in effect, what we're saying is the marketing team needs to learn a little bit more tech, a little bit more product, a little bit more data. Product teams need to be a bit more open towards understanding marketing requirements.
Absolutely.
What tends to typically happen is product ends up being the gateway to technology and content, which means marketing would have to write tickets of requirements, and then this would come to product and technology to implement. So this is more of a one-way dependency play that, okay, we need this from technology and hence we ask this of you. But in the queue that the product team has, there are asks from all sorts of teams, right? There's going to be from operations, from supply chain, perhaps from your customer support. All sorts of asks keep getting consolidated. And which is where marketing tends to be one of the 5 items in the queue, and that tends to always struggle for attention in some sense. So in your impression, now that you've kind of built and running a growth function in some sense, and there is a deeper, let's say, interplay or interaction with marketing, and there's a certain level of prioritization that you're allocating towards that because you appreciate their value to the whole funnel conversion, right? So how does this get designed? Is this something which is like pushed from the top at the organization level? Is this more around education on both sides and active acknowledgement that we are mutually dependent? Because in general, at least across a lot of situations we see, marketing and product don't seem like best friends.
Exactly. So I think, the right way of doing it is, I think if you're having a overall, the overall for both business, marketing and product, there's an overall goal that, you need to get more revenue. If that metric is there, after that you basically work, and again in the scope of our discussion, right? How this whole growth itself as a platform, or in our world we call it as a growth platform. I think, how that growth platform is one team. And that growth platform is, there will be product guys as well as marketing guys, and they will have shared goals to meet.
The same manager as well?
Yes. I think, in some sense, I think,
the same KPIs, the same end goals, the
exactly.
same OKRs, so to speak.
Yeah. So managers and leaders can be different, but if you have the same goals and if you work on a common shared metrics, I think it works. I think it is tough to set that cadence. But once that cadence is right, and if the mind share is right, I think, you don't see them as, rather request response kind of again, that thing. If you come out of that mindset, if you have common reviews, right? Like, for example, I'm saying, hey, everything is there, and then you're saying, fine end goals, but I think, the responsibilities of what somebody is doing in marketing, somebody is doing it as a product manager, from what needs to be done. Together they work and make that happen and have the shared goals. I think, it's a much more doable thing, because you're not kind of, being asked for, hey, I did this and it was there, pushed to them, they didn't prioritize it or whatever it is.
So in some sense, Vadiraj, this is very obvious to you because of a certain level of experience you now have. You've seen the lopsided equation where this equation versus this equation, what kind of outcomes does it have for the business, and there is lack of efficiency, so to speak, or there's probably a lot of deadlocks and lack of progress as well. So from an org design perspective, what I hear you say is the guy who's leading the play will have to make sure that the marketing and the product team collaborate fairly deeply, to the extent of having shared reviews and shared KPIs, without which this is going to be a hard journey to cross.
Hard journey and slightly inefficient. And I think, again, we should not have the blame loops. I think, and that is where I think, new age companies, new age startups, I would say why they're successful is, I think, you're trying to make things efficient. Whatever has not worked earlier, you're trying to make it efficiency. And from a very high level, I'm saying, again, this is an efficiency building loop, or breaking the inefficiency loop.
Sure.
I think that's how I would see it.
So fair. Now, if you were to zoom in and kind of dissect a little bit on how these KPIs would look, and for a larger business in the insurance industry, you get customers from multiple sources, right? Somebody would have entered the game through a car insurance product, or a bike insurance product, or a travel insurance product. And now you have a diverse set of customers who've been acquired. Some of them have monthly renew, I would say, premium payment cycles and so on. So there's a certain automation that has to be built in there. But let's look at the entire cross-sell play, which can be very meaningful, because given the nature of competition, I would imagine the customer acquisition cost is only going to remain higher and higher.
Yeah.
And for some of these smaller ticket items like travel, maybe one time for a car, the premium is not an insane 3-digit number. It's a 2-digit thousand value prop, right? So it's not like you have a lot of margin to make on this business, which means the CAC would have to be controlled in a certain fashion, or you'll have to orchestrate a lot of cross-sells and upsells to make sure that this guy's relationship deepens with your business. So how do you look at this lens on, in the banking world, I know there are category teams which have their own KPIs to expand customer relationship. Somebody would want to sell him a home loan, somebody would want to sell him a credit card, somebody would want to give him a personal loan, and so on. And they don't necessarily talk to each other very, very efficiently, because that's how the organization has been designed so far. The customer relationship is not a single relationship. He has multiple touch points within the bank. It's changing, and neobanks are trying to do a better job with this. In the insurance world, I would imagine you currently have 4 products and you might be adding more. You spoke about adding life potentially. So how does this interplay of setting a customer relationship on an expansion path? How does this look?
Sure, a very interesting problem. I think, as you rightly said, I think, traditional companies, I think, they will have a challenge, because I think, each has its own function. I think, they are running their category, they are running their own, what we call digital transformation IT teams. I think in their worlds, right? I think, their technology teams are seen as IT teams. But I think that is where an advantage for a newer age company who's trying to disrupt is, I think, you have common systems, and I think and even in my current charter, I think I lead the whole central platforms and products, which the whole objective is, I think whatever could be centralized, I think is what we take care from a technology and product standpoint. So you're you have the same CRM system, I think that can run across all categories. You have the whole growth stack that can be the same, instrumentation that is there that can be the same. You can have the same platforms for promotions, for campaigns and all that. I think that can remain same. And once you have that, I think the aspects that you talked about, right? I think typically you talked about cross-selling and upselling. So where while it is challenging for legacy companies, I think because the information is not available. Even if the information is available, it is slow. How you move from one to another, and then there are no easy ways to kind of mine that. In our worlds, I think when you have common systems, I think you can we have an ability, or we should kind of take advantage of that ability to understand a customer who comes from one funnel, but he can be a potential customer for for our other category.
Sure.
Like for instance, I think in Acko's journey, I think one of our first products, claim to fame success was the whole sachet insurance for travel.
Sure.
I think where we disrupted the whole that ride insurance. Which is a specific time insurance. I think the company took a lot of pride. Takes a lot of pride in. I think disrupting that space, which was a travel-led innovation that led to a lot of customers, right? I think, and how you can now potentially kind of use that to sell either a health insurance or a motor insurance or whatever. And few things again, technology-led interventions that can help for any company. I think including us, is how you can have the customer profiles, customer information available, and how you can use that for cross-sell. You know about the customer, you know about the demographics, and how you can kind of at the points of time, he's been for example, he's been a motor customer. You are doing the normal things of maybe retention marketing and activation and conversion from him every year, but I think we will have an ability to say that, hey, I think we have launched a new retail health plan, and it may be applicable for you. And I think so I think we can use all the digital channels to kind of bring him, make him aware, make him go through those funnels. So technology plays as you rightly said, technology plays a very important role. I think slightly getting into technology platforms per se, I think the aspects about CDP and how much you know about the customer information and what tools that you have to kind of you are able to kind of nudge him or be in touch with him. I think they are a very important lever, which is an advantage to a new age company.
You would take it for granted because when you started this kind of play, you had a underlying consolidated data system. Hopefully the layers on top to make sense of that data, as well as to start using data for user communication. Now, from an org perspective, you have a certain growth team whose charter is to drive new acquisition perhaps, as well as to expand relationships where you've been able to acquire customers. And in a multi-product scenario, the user journeys from where they enter to where they end up at the end of 1 year could be multiple. You might have started from travel and now you have a car insurance. You might have started from car and now you have a travel insurance, or not travel, but maybe a life insurance.
Travel mostly because we travel
need-based. So it's a small ticket, which is why I don't think of it as a life cycle item. I think of it as a need-based opportunistic outcome. But from a relationship expansion point of view, travel might be a great source of new customers. So what I was trying to understand is, from a team or KPI design, how do you look at customer life cycles? Because what I heard from banks is the customer life cycle is not owned by one team. It's owned by multiple components of everybody trying to pull in their direction. In your world, are there going to be category teams who will try and do their part? That, okay, my job is to only sell motor insurance and I will find every customer which is new or existing, and I'm going to try and sell them motor insurance, which is one way of doing things. Or there's a different way wherein you say that, okay, I'm going to look at this cohort of customers that have been acquired. Over the next 12 months, I need to make sure that these have bought at least one more product from us, whatever that product is. So what is that framework in your impression, which is the right way to go about this?
Sure. So I think, again, that is how the traditional companies would work, because of I mean, how they
That's
are
a legacy.
in their legacy. I think the newer age companies will have, I mean, as I mentioned, I think, access to information and ability to infer and synthesize that information. So the right way of looking at it is any one organization, both the organization, like, for example, if you say, there's a category teams, I mean, what you mentioned, I mean, I think that there may be category teams for different categories, right? Like for motor, health, I mean, take examples of motor, health, or travel. Now, I think the right way of looking at it is there is a KPI not just in one, it is in both. So one is trying to say that, hey, how much of your customer base, how you are trying to make them aware of a new category. And the KPI in the other category is how much I am able to cross sell from a different category. He's not been for example, he may not be a health customer, but he may be a travel customer. And he has traveled, he has used our travel insurance. He's there now. When we are trying to come up with a new plan, then how you are making them aware through a KPI that, and in fact, the way I would say the right way to design it is in your overall plan. Cross sell itself can be one of the segments, right? And that I want to say X% from cross sell, because that's, I think once you have that element and if that kicks in, I think that's a your cost for acquisition is much lower than compared to your other things, right? So the right way from a design standpoint is, I think, how you can structure it in all the categories, and as a part of that it may be a revenue yielded to a different category, but I think it's a onus for you to also this team to say that, hey, how that information of an existing customer is made available to a new category. And it is what I would say is a advantage for a tech player, technology led player, or a Insurtech company to say that how you are able to kind of move them across. You're getting more share of the wallet of the customer over a period of time.
So there is people who would be switching out of different categories and then coming and centralizing all their insurance with one company, maybe because I might have taken health from somebody else, but now it's time for renewal. I'll bring that relationship back to this company because I've had a great experience.
Absolutely, I think, and in fact, that is what I think companies like us should thrive on. Right? I think because I think that's what we would want to do. That. And in fact, I think our statement to say that we say that we want to be the protection destination, and what you exactly paraphrased it is what we want to do is we want to be the protection destination where people come to us to seek protection. And protection can be from anything, right? From your mobile phone screen cracking, you want a protection there, or for your health, emergency that may happen, or a accident that may happen while driving to the office in Silk Board traffic in Bangalore. So I think what you actually said is what we any company for that matter. I think
So I would then zoom in a little bit on the part around how does the customer relationship manage after the insurance being bought. I'm hopefully not going to ever need to use it, but the fact that I have it, if I have a reasonably frequent reminder that it's there, is a certain set of security and comfort, and that brand salience kind of continues in the game. And are there touch points in the customer's life cycle across different stages wherein you find opportunities to give him that comfort and find that window that if it only needs something from the company, like in case of travel, before I fly, after I land, before I travel back, whatever, there are pieces of information that might be handy for me. So from a, let's say, user engagement standpoint, are these topics that come on your radar and you kind of address them from some sort of a communication or engagement piece?
Absolutely. I think, in fact, you have actually slightly shifted your thinking from a growth thinking to a customer experience thinking,
which is direct to growth, right?
Which is directly to growth. But I think in our worlds, I think the way we think is, one is growth is continuously getting new growth. All the
new
acquisition, new customers, retention, and all that. And second is how you engage them. So that part of the growth funnel, which is engagement, is what we. And what you touched upon is in the insurance world, that is a claim experience. I think, so, and how you engage them is
break it into two things.
Yeah.
So, of course, there is a non-claim journey as well, because do I have an app on my phone from Acko ever?
Yeah.
Do you have like those
Exactly.
roadside assistance kind of things? Those are all the not
No,
necessarily.
you not have claimed, but you are aware of those.
Those experiences which are not claim led, but still experiences from a
Exactly,
brand point of view.
exactly.
That's one side of it. Then there's a claim experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would love to delve into both of these.
So I'll
Because
actually extend that thought in terms
Yeah.
of I'll take the engagement lever. I mean, I think I will take the engagement lever, and the engagement for any customer. I mean, I think will dwell on too many things, right? I mean, in the sense, one is like, how do you, so interestingly, unlike a lot of other companies, I mean, I think, commerce, e-commerce, food delivery and all that, they are very frequency touch point. I mean,
Sure.
frequent touch points. I mean, you'll probably buy you have a navy blue shirt, you'll want a black shirt next month. I think, but insurance, I mean, I think is a 1 year. I mean, I think you need to, if you buy an annual plan, I think, you'll have to do it only the next time.
Sure.
So for an insurance company, it's very important to also, I mean, I think we have very few touch points where you can engage them. And how do we make it more interesting to we keep them engaged is one, the levers of what all new plans that you have, how to make them aware. Second is, I mean, I think the normal insurance awareness that's happening. And third is, I mean, I think we should be also on the constant lookout for providing anything associated in our world. I mean, I think it's not a pure sell.
Sure.
But you are helping them. Like, for example, I mean, I think we launched a feature and that got a very interesting adoption in our app is the Challan feature, what we call it.
Okay.
So, and I think, we launched it a few months and we saw very interesting adoptions where a lot of people were not aware that they are driving and they have challans.
Okay.
And we made it very simple to say that, hey, I mean, you are driving across Bangalore or any other city and you have challans which you are not aware. And we have given a feature where it is not an insurance sell, but you can just punch in your registration number and you can get the pending challans.
This is from the traffic department or something.
Yeah. So I think, so that was it was not a selling funnel. It's an engagement funnel, and I think we kind of provided that great adoptions that happened, and now the engagement and since I'm talking about engagement, I think how you can look at peripheral things of engagement which are not led to pure selling, and that can be a great way to kind of, in fact, you can get a lot of who are not actually customers. It can add to your top of the funnel. I mean, I think at some point of time, I mean, like for example, I mean, I think once I have the challans, I mean, he wants to keep coming back, and we hope that he wants to keep coming back and checking, especially in Bangalore traffic. I think, you never know when you got a challan.
Sure. So that's a very interesting one, because to me, an insurance company only remembers me when it's time for renewal.
Exactly.
And now suddenly you're doing things for me where my renewal is still 9 months away.
Yeah.
And that's a great example. So thank you for bringing it up. But is this it seems like something which is on your conscious radar to engage with the customer even before his renewal is due.
Yeah.
So what might be some other ideas in your impression across different industries, or rather different product categories, wherein you look at these innovative ways of keeping the customer in the conversation? I remember there was some of this roadside assistance kind of things were brought in for car insurance folks.
Yeah.
I don't know, some directory of tire services, some directory of puncture service providers, blah, blah. But is there more that you're thinking in that direction, and what could those be?
Yeah. So any of these, right? I mean, using the engagement lever, which is something which is outside the pure purview of selling, but is useful to a customer, right? I think, if you can take that view and build a hypothesis around that, I think, you mentioned roadside assistance, and if you can bundle up something to say that we are like, we are partnered with so many companies, I mean, making your roadside assistance easier, I think that's another parallel service, right? Similarly, maybe in health, I think, providing information about like, your nearest hospitals, which is a peripheral thing. But I think, you might want to kind of look at them and we'll be kind of nudging them to kind of keep them aware that, you're not just coming to us every year, but I think, you're having some hack into our system where they want to come back and talk to us.
So in some sense, would you be able to confidently say now that the adoption of your Challan feature would have a direct correlation with the renewal rates? Because if this guy is going to go away from Acko to another company, he might not have this Challan component anymore, and he'll miss it, so he'll not switch.
Exactly. So
unless there's a big price differential.
Yeah. So in fact, I would say that, and again, these are all like, experiments that one
Hypotheses
can
at
do.
this point, which
You
is
do
fine.
hypothesis. We were not sure when we started, like how it will be adopted, and we had some interesting experiences, and then we saw that it was a great adoption. So the way we would look at is not just renewal. I think what I'm saying is it may be a top of the funnel addition itself.
Sure.
Because he may be a customer who just became aware, but he got hooked to some engagement lever through which he has downloaded the app and he's there with us. And as a part of his frequency and cadence, he comes back and checks every 2 months or once a month. He comes and checks, but he is indeed coming and checking. And at some point in his journey, I think your renewals would be there. Either he may want a health insurance, or he has bought an iPhone, he may want an insurance, or he has bought a new car that he wants an insurance for. So we would like us to be the first persons whom he wants to check, because we are already there, in his mind share.
Sure. So let me now jump to the third part, which is a very small, let's say, part of the puzzle from a numeric point of view, but a critical part nonetheless. This whole claim business. So from a user experience or going through a claim, and I've seen some great testimonials on the platform where it's been an extremely smooth experience for people. I would imagine this has been a very consciously designed effort. So I'd love to delve a little deep into, in your experience or understanding, what is a great design of a claim process?
Yeah, so it's a very important function, I would say. Because again, I think we are not selling gratification, right? Here we are not selling a physical product or whatever. You're actually protecting a risk, and that is what is your product. And if the emphasis would be on kind of saying that hey, when you require assistance from us, we are there to fulfill that.
Sure.
And if we are able to kind of emphasize that and get that trust from the customer, I think that is the first part of the puzzle. And second, when such an event happens, how you can make it smooth.
Sure.
And when you break that, I think in any insurance world, I think the whole claim process itself, if you look at it, I think it happens where it is not a planned event, right? You don't want to be claiming. It happens. You don't want that thing to happen, but it has happened. So it's completely unplanned. You are not ready for what you should do. Second is, it is some way emergency. Customer is hysterical. He doesn't know. He's not able to. A very sane customer, but at the point when something is being claimed, he's not in the best time to think and in his mind to look at what all things to be happening. So how you can make that wearing the customer's hat at that point of time and designing something to say that we are there when you require help, and how will we make it easier for you?
Sure.
Right. I think and if you can do that aspect, right? For example, I'll just give an example of if if you have taken a health insurance and if somebody is claiming, the person who is, if a policy may be mine, but I think I am in the hospital bedridden. I think and I may not be able to do everything.
Sure.
How you can make it easier for a family member to put that claim across?
Okay.
Or the levers of typical insurance, right? And you would have faced it as well as if you go to a hospital and I think the whole 9 yards of providing so much of information, paperwork, that approval, approval from a TPA, and so all that. In my view, I think even before I landed up here in the Insurtech space, I think that was a very frustrating element. I think that something, at least being in the technology world, you would think that why it is being done so inefficiently. There's the same information is available, but it is the same. I think you are doing it very, very inefficiently. So how you can take those levers, at that whole times where using technology, how you can say that, hey, we are there, it is very fast, anybody can use it. I think, like, for example, in a motor claim, if we have done a claim, incidentally, I think, I had a small claim myself for my car a few months back.
So the first-hand user experience.
Yeah, so first-hand user experience.
And you're an Acko customer, I presume.
Yes, absolutely, right? So proud Acko customer, right? So, so I think, it could, it was like you can, apart from designing and implementing those, but I think, as even for any other customer, I think, it would have been just like, you meet with with an accident, and immediately I think you take pictures of the claim, and then the policy is already there, and then just uploading it, and it is already all through the app. I mean, I think we want to direct it where there is no involvement immediately in terms of anybody, like in a traditional company it would be like you would call, you would wait for somebody, they will come, they will like take 2 days to register, then they'll have the paperwork. So I mean, I've seen that world as well. I mean,
this is still 95% of that world, right?
Yes. So and the exciting part is, I think how that 95% can be a better world that we can make out of, right?
Which is the customer experience improvement opportunity available to digital first players.
Yeah. So I think the whole thing about registering claim. I mean, talking slightly insurance domain. I mean, registering a claim, then. After the claim or whatever, like for example, in the instance where in a hospital, it is all about making the hospital experience better, or in a motor case, how you are if it needs intervention, how you can keep them informed. In terms of statuses, constantly it is there. You are running through 10 steps, and how each step you are keeping them aware. Because anxiety management at that point for the customer is very important.
Absolutely.
So how you can do that, and again, as a technology company, I think we can do that much more meaningfully. We have the tool sets to do it in the right manner. And then of course, I think the actual claim itself. I think, and when we talk about claim, again, I think you need not. In the earlier world, it was like everything happens, then after 1 month. There is a check being given, then you deposit a check. So I think we are out of that world, right? I think fintech has emerged. There are so many new things that are happening in the banking payments world. So like, you take advantage of all of that, where everything is seamless, everything is digital. You have registered a claim. The claim is sorted. Your equipment, your asset is rectified. Then I think you can either, at least in our case, I think you can get paid yourself, or it is directly paid to the workshop or whatever. Everything is happening digitally
on the app itself.
Yeah,
and the customer is extremely well informed throughout the various stages of whatever is going on.
Yeah, to manage his anxiety and saying that here, I think and remaining true to our philosophy of saying that please trust us, and I think these are the ways of how you can re-emphasize that trust.
What would be very intriguing for me to know is somebody who's gone through your claim experience would ideally have a much better renewal rate, because this experience is way
absolutely
more efficient compared to what he would have gone through with another insurer.
Very true. I think because I think it built multiple. It re-emphasizes the whole thing, right? I think one is, it's not just what you're saying is one thing, but you are actually, proof of the pudding is when you have actually made that happen. And when that happens, I think and again, statistics will say that I think they will remain not only for that category, but they will come for other categories.
Which is where you become the protection destination for the customer. So well, it's been a very interesting conversation, Vadiraj, and I've now learned a bunch of more nuances about the insurance industry and how technology can actually simplify customer experiences, not just in the trust building stage, but also in the claim processing stage, which can be a big source of anxiety for people given the nature of emergencies. But you've done a fairly interesting job of really doing a great job on pinpointing those pieces, right? So, now you're leading growth as a charter, and I would love to just have a fairly macro level view on how the agenda for growth looks like for Acko now. What are the different building blocks, maybe more categories, maybe more products, maybe more ways of engaging with customers? What's your top of the mind?
So interestingly, I'll touch upon historically how we have grown, and where we are currently, and I think moving ahead as well. I think what our levers are going to be. So historically, I think we started with auto. I think motor insurance, which contributes a significant more than 50% of our top line, and it continues to be a very large business for us. Different categories coming in terms of cars, bikes, and again, that funnel itself, there are different set of customers, right? Like for example, car customers can be first-time car buyers, new cars, fresh cars. Then there are bike insurance customers who have a different behavior and all that. So I think that's one category, one large category. Health is another category that in the last 1.5 years, I think we have grown. There will be a lot of emphasis that we want to kind of work on this phase to again starting with by taking our learnings of how, like, what we have taken motor insurance from a learning from that angle, but to a different category. Again, they are very two different categories, two different, I would say each category has its own selling cycles.
Absolutely.
Marketing is different, selling is different, how a customer looks at the time of buying is very different, the strategies may be different. So but I think we have already kickstarted that. So that last 1.5 years, that's what we are trying to, and that will hopefully grow. And the third is what we call embedded insurance. I think, and we touched upon in our discussion, I think, we were one of the first players to innovate on the sachet insurance on travel.
Sure.
For the the small rides that you have on a day-to-day basis.
You did not notice this when you were riding in Ola, you were actually getting a tick box to say that I want to insure this ride for 1 rupee.
Yes.
Quite an innovative way of expanding the universe of what insurance coverage could do, right?
Absolutely. And that was, I think it's a interesting trivia for the company as well as for me. I was not there, but I think, it's the right super way of how that 1 rupee insurance was created. And in fact, I think, that catapulted us to kind of say that, okay, hey, very quickly we can use technology to build newer innovative insurances.
Sure.
And I think, that continues to be the embedded insurance, that continues to be a lever where we want to look, overall as a category. I think there may be different things in that category. We already offer insurances for screen damage for your mobile phones. That's again, and each person having a new phone, you want that safety net. So all that comes under that interesting mode where you partner with some for some need, which is a slightly innovative need, which is not a traditional need. Things like this, maybe for travel, for these small micro insurance packages and all that. And interestingly, in the last couple of months, I think, we have received a license for launching life. And that's a great, I would say, another big category.
Biggest
biggest pie, I think, to look. So very, very early days on that front, I think, but hopefully we should be able to use a lot of our learnings to kind of get into that space. A very different space again. But yeah, I think we'll be using those learnings. And again, the themes that we talked about, right? I think it's a protection destination when it means, all these themes will be protection destinations per se when we are talking about it. So the art and the science and technology of which would be to see that, how we can offer customers that trust and then move from one category to another category. If he's coming from the motor funnel, I think, we should be able to sell other categories and keep them engaged, keep them protected for all these themes, and how we do it efficiently and how we are there when the customers require us in the most efficient manner using technology as a lever is what is our strength, I would say.
Awesome. So, well, on that note, I do wish more insurance companies would think like Acko and really get inspired on leveraging technology and data to interplay between marketing and product teams, and to also make sure the customer experience throughout the journey, not just buying, not just claims, but the entire relationship is actually smooth. All the best with trying to be the protection destination. Thank you so much for doing this, Vadiraj.
Hey, thanks, Ankur. Pleasure talking.
Same here. So that was an interesting conversation with Vadiraj. He prefers to be called Vadi, so that's interesting. And a few things that I really enjoyed about this, and a few insights that came out well. The first part was the clear interplay between product and marketing teams. Now, these are not teams that necessarily have a very straightforward way of collaborating. They don't necessarily see eye to eye with each other. But the fact of today, if you want to drive growth, is these teams will have to collaborate extremely closely. The second part of the conversation, where for an insurance company, normally I would have imagined them to get involved with me when I have bought insurance and when it's time to renew. And they've actually found a whole bunch of ways of engaging with the customer in between this journey. To me, that's an extremely powerful way of making sure the renewal rates are going to be higher, because if you're going to only remember me at the end of the year, I probably have found somebody else as well. So third part of the whole process, where I found the attention to detail fairly fascinating, and the fact that it's a digital first play, was the amount of attention to claim processing. Now, the customer is anxious, he has had a hard situation, maybe an accident, maybe a health situation. At that moment, if your experience is smooth and you're able to do a good job with making sure the customer has all the right information at the right time, is getting timely alerts and updates, that can be a very, very impactful thing in terms of how the customer perceives your brand and how he renews with you. So well, here's wishing Vadi the best with making sure he becomes a protection destination for all things insurance. Thank you so much.